Well, hello, internet friends near and far. Welcome to this, our first episode of Podcast 99. This is the second era in the It's a Sure Thing podcast project where
Mhm.
uh, Jeremy and myself, we are walking through the Mike Schur television projects. We finished up Parks and Recreation in 2023. And so we're jumping in to Brooklyn Nine-Nine here in the year of our Lord 2024. So, Jeremy, we're also doing this video experiment. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm so good. I just love technology in all its ways and fashions.
hmm
And yeah, I'm glad we were able to overcome the challenges that we faced to make this happen.
Yeah, I needed technology to record all of the problems that we had so you could see that we know how to use technology.
Right. I
But
was my default was to record the meeting like right when we start, just so I wouldn't forget to record.
hmm
And I turned that off because I felt like that might be a little creepy. But it would have recorded me just staring here
yeah,
for like a half hour as Jeremy is texting me, not using the chat, but texting me all the problems he's having.
it wouldn't work.
So, and then I would just start talking. Did you give it all permissions? So, but we're here.
We're here.
We're
We did it.
here.
We did it.
So, yeah. So, Jeremy, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We're calling
Yes.
this era Podcast 99 because we are uber creative.
hmm
And so, Jeremy, what are some of your, like, as we're jumping in, your first uh thoughts on this series? It's over. Like,
It is
how do you
over.
feel about the series as a whole, or when you first jumped in? Like, what were your impressions? So let's start with your impressions when you first jumped in, and how you feel like it ended. How's that go?
I- How the show ended.
Yeah, like how you feel like the show. Do you feel like the show ended well? We don't have to get into the ending, but like the
Oh,
journey
right.
of the
Yeah.
show.
I honestly don't remember the ending. I started to rewatch a little while ago, got about two seasons in, and then just kind of stopped because I knew we were going to be doing this. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I can't remember how it ends.
That's fine.
So probably awesome. I'm going to assume I like this. This show feels so different from Parks and Rec. I mean, just the tone of the whole thing. I think a lot of that is obviously Andy Samberg and just all the different characters are so different. But yeah, I think just rewatching the pilot episode, it's a hilarious show, and just the fact that they could have. I feel like they really could have gone like super spoofy with the whole cop,
Right.
and played up the cliches, and they do play with that a little bit, but they don't. They didn't turn it into like a Naked Gun Leslie Nielsen kind of thing, like an Angie Tribeca, which I'm happy
Yeah.
about. So we do get some character. It is very much a sitcom, but yeah, I think it's a really fun show. I don't the beginning season. I think they won an Emmy for the first season, and you can
Mhm.
just kind of tell. It just feels like nothing else that had been on at the time. And Andy Samberg really, it's this perfect role for him. Andre Brower is amazing. I mean, just the cast was perfect. I think that was a big part of it. The cast is amazing for the show.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's been a long time. I think the thing that surprised me most was I found out today that there's a Christmas episode in 2022 or a TV movie, and I didn't see that one.
I didn't
It
see
was
this
like,
either. What?
yeah, I know. See, so we have so much to explore
Oh,
on
I
this
have to find that.
journey. Yeah, exactly. So what about you? I mean, what were your first? I mean, would you remember when you first watched it or
Yeah, I watched the first episode live
yeah,
when it
yeah.
aired. Back then, I had a DVR and I recorded it even, and I set up I'm going to record this. I'm going to watch it, but I also had very young children at the time, so I fell off the habit of watching it and then just canceled the DVR. It's like I'm never gonna. I'm gonna declare bankruptcy on trying to watch this show,
hmm
and I'll get to it when I get to it. But then also, this may be part of my fault, partly my fault. It got canceled because it originally was on Fox
Oh yeah.
and it got canceled and then it moved to NBC, which is one of those things that is just so rare where somebody else will be like, oh, that network doesn't want this, but we'll try.
Yeah.
And I think most of it aired on NBC.
Yeah, Fox
And
is notoriously they were Netflix before Netflix. Like they were the channel that would cancel a good show before it was done for some reason. Or they did it to Arrested Development. I mean,
right.
they've done it to a bunch of really funny shows for some reason. And then NBC was like, yeah, thanks. We'll take it from here.
Yeah. And I think it's partly because it is like owned by like the Hollywood production is very confusing to me because different networks own different production companies, but then
Hmm.
they air those shows on different networks than the owner of the. And so I think NBC had an ownership stake in Brooklyn Nine-Nine for some reason. But yeah, it's just so weird. So then when it went over, it also that was about the time it ended up on Netflix, and that's when I actually like started watching it
Yeah.
and getting caught
And
up, and then waiting for the Netflix drop to watch it again.
mhm.
And then just over the last in December, it was the whole series was available on iTunes for $25. And so I picked it up because I just don't want it to disappear from me again. Even though it's on Peacock, you can follow along on Peacock. But yeah, I just was like, I should just own this. I love this show. So yeah, but part of the reason that I was attracted to it because I was actually over Andy Samberg by this point in my like his SNL tenure was had some really great moments, but it also had some down moments that I was like, man, is there anything else to Andy Samberg other than just yelling?
Andy
Uh,
Samberg.
yeah, other than being Andy Samberg, and I was actually kind of over it. And so, what really drew me to this show was Andre Brower
Yeah.
because I don't know. Did you ever watch Homicide: Life on the Streets?
No, and everybody has told me it's like a phenomenal show, and I need to, and I keep forgetting to.
It is one of the best shows I've ever seen. I am very frustrated that it is not really readily available on streaming platforms. I don't know. I don't know where it is. I've looked over and over again. Years ago, when my kids were very little and I was homebound because they went to bed very early, and Kathy, my wife, was working nights, I checked out every DVD from the library and watched the whole series on DVD by myself. But that
Oh,
was one of those shows that I would watch when I was a kid. Like it was Friday nights on NBC. So I'd alternate between X Files and Homicide: Life on the Streets, and that because I was just such a nerd. But Andre Brower was just such a phenomenal character on that show. Just a very
and that's a
intense
more
detective.
and that's a more serious show, right?
Oh, it's a drama. It is a straight drama. It's
Okay.
the guy who wrote The Wire, David Simon.
Oh yeah,
He wrote this also. Like this is
yeah.
his
That was a
project.
that was a fun little romp through Baltimore.
Yeah. So this Homicide is also set on in Baltimore.
Okay.
So yeah, it's so good. And so then I saw Andre Brower is in a comedy with Andy Samberg. I was like, I have to check this out. And he is just so perfect. He played Captain Holt so wonderfully. And like when we first meet him in this episode, he's so serious and stern, and over the course of the series, he becomes more playful. And
Hmm.
when but he's still very serious and direct. And I just love Captain Holt. He's just such a good character, and Andre Brower is such a great, yeah, just a great actor. And yeah, so and then over between Parks and Rec recording and this, Andre Brower actually passed away,
Hmm.
and that was a very sad day. Like I don't really get super emotional with uh celebrity deaths because I don't actually know these people.
Right.
But Andre Brower, I didn't. I'm not gonna say I got emotional, but it was one of those things that like hit me in a way. I was like, oh man, he was so young and he's just so gifted. So yeah. Anyway,
Well,
where do we go from there?
that was fun.
But the show as a whole, like in
Oh yeah.
this first pilot episode, there are things that are introduced, and what I appreciate about this show is it stays consistent in tone
Hmm.
throughout,
Yeah.
and characters do change and evolve over time.
Yeah.
but like it doesn't. They are the seeds that are planted in this pilot go all the way through.
Yeah, like the one of my favorite parts was just like, yeah, knowing mostly where the characters end up, but like Charles Boyle and the ham, like that his culinary, journey, or that he and it gets nerdier and nerdier. They just kind of, latch on to these little hooks that happened, like Rosa was kind of one dimensional for a long time, but then once they started opening her up, so they really did a great job of really opening these characters up. But yeah, the initial idea of these characters was so great. Chelsea Peretti, her character was like a good, like the notes, the tone of all of those characters together totally worked, because if everybody was a goofball like Jake, or we get one serious person, but then like with Andre Brower, and then the uptight, oh, what's her name,
Amy.
Amy, yeah, so you get all these, and Amy and the sergeant are like, they're kind of more serious cops, but at the same time they have their own quirks and flaws. So
Right.
like any good character, there's places to go.
Yeah.
No yogurt, no mention of yogurt in the first episode, but that's okay. We'll get there.
And Terry doesn't refer to himself in the third person in
That's true.
this episode, but it's coming.
And at the very end of this episode, Andre Brower like smiles. Like that was
Right.
that was the thing. I paused it. I was just like, oh man, I missed that so long ago, because after this, they really hammered down on his stoicism. And it's so rare for him to do it, but he did it in the very first episode. And I was like, I don't know. Just based on what had happened the last couple of months, it was pretty cool to start the series off that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I do love that he's very serious, but then he smiles because he makes a callback.
Yeah.
Which is one of, the comedy gold is a good callback. And yeah. And so so let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about this. And we'll listener, viewer, if you were a part of our previous, if you're just jumping in here, this posted on YouTube. If you're just jumping in and you found this, you can find all of the past episodes on Parks and Conversation. Just search for that in your podcast app.
Explain where they're going to find this one, though.
This one will also be at the same place on the podcast app. Well, if you search Parks and Conversation, you should find it. If you I don't know, we'll figure it out. I'll post it. It'll be fine. It'll be the same feed as Parks and Conversation. Sure. So search Parks and Conversation, search Podcast 9-9, search two guys talking about things they don't know about, and you'll find a whole bunch of podcasts.
Right.
So yeah, but if you're following along on YouTube, like, subscribe, ring that bell, all the things the kids say, comment on things. Let us know your thoughts on these episodes as well, because we would love to hear from you, because this is a great show and we like talking about TV, and in particular Michael Schur's stuff. So
can I ask you a question real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Are all of those books like in your head behind you? Like all of those books?
No, they're on my shelves.
No, I know, but I mean, is the content of those books, the ideas of those, the words, the thoughts, those are all in there?
I haven't read all of these books. But
that's why you have a hat, just to contain all the knowledge.
Yeah, I don't want it to leak out. I'm wearing a hat because the headphones actually makes a weird dent in my hair, and so I don't like it. So
yeah, you don't want this line, you want this line.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That looks more normal. A lot of it, yeah. I remember a lot of what I've read. Yeah. So
it's just wild. Yeah. Okay.
But I also have books, and I have a note card system to help me remember things, and I have my I saw somebody posted this on Threads, and I was like, oh, I love this book. A manual for writers. This is the Turabian style guide. I have this handy all the time. So because my brain is not good at remembering, that's why I write stuff down.
Yeah, because you have too much stuff in there.
Nah, I don't think that's
it. You gotta curate. That's my thing.
I am curating. Look, let me get out of the way here. Look, this is all my Tom Clancy books. So I recently organized my shelves and I got to that shelf. Listener, cool. I'm pointing. So, yeah. All right. Good question, Jeremy.
You have to teach us about the Doom and Decimal System later. Let's get into the show.
It's not that organized. It's more just like, what's the vibe of this show?
Murder mystery.
Yeah. techno thrillers, military stuff. Over here is Star Wars. This whole shelf is Star Wars. This is
Uh-huh.
Sanderson, Brandon
Yeah.
Sanderson, and on this side is Tolkien. And then this is assorted. The vibe is
Like
assorted.
I tried to choose a background that reflected my mental state, just a see-through, clear pane of glass.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, nailed it.
Okay.
All right. All right, let's jump in. Let's talk about season one, episode one. Um,
Okay.
uh, yeah, we don't have a script in front of us. I don't have a script in front of me. I don't know if you've got one, but I'm just gonna kind of go and do kind of scene by scene and talk a little bit about stuff. And I do love how the tone is it like as it starts, Peralta's staring into the camera, giving a very intense monologue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wait, was this supposed to
Hard-boiled
be a
pop
comedy?
style. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is gonna be a noir, like a modern noir film. And he's like, I became them. And then zoom out and we find that they're actually in an electronics store and he's just talking into one of those cameras that is set up and on all the TVs behind. Now, Jeremy, we are children of the 80s and 90s.
Oh yeah.
And we would go, we in our area, there is a store called Fred Meyer.
Yes.
And I don't remember if you had this experience, but Fred Meyer would have like 8 cameras pointing out outside of the electronics thing and a bunch of TVs, and you would walk in front and do the whole thing.
And the game was to try to figure out which camera went to which TV.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then you
Yeah.
could look right into it and stare into people's souls. Or wait, no,
Yes.
they could look at mine. That was the problem. Dang
That
it.
was the problem.
I had it backwards.
Yeah. If you hadn't done
Yeah.
that so much, maybe you would have read more books.
Probably. Well,
um,
it starts when you walk in too with the security camera.
right.
Like they prime you, like right even before you get in the
You're
store.
being watched.
And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, hey, enjoy this little dance as I walk in.
Right. I always give people a thumbs up
hmm
like that. Also, I talk to ravens now because they remember us. And so I just say, like, I see you, Raven.
Yeah. I say,
Um,
hey, what's up, man?
yeah. So I just want them to know, like, hey, we're cool. I'm not gonna mess with you, even though birds aren't real. So because of drones and the government, right?
Right, mhm.
You're familiar with
Yeah.
this. Birds aren't
Yeah.
real. Okay.
.com. Yeah.
Is that an actual website?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's the
cool.
whole movement.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
Should we just, oh, okay, it's dumb. Yeah. Let's move on.
Should we just what? Get into it?
Yeah.
The conspiracy that the government replaced all the birds with drones over the last 10 years?
hmm
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mean, obviously, when bird flu hit, the government was like, this is our chance to kill the birds. And
And
uh,
replace them all.
yeah, so watch out, everybody. So Jake and Amy are in this electronics store and there's been a burglary. And so uh, Amy is trying to like solve the case and actually ask real information. And Jake is playing with all the technology in the store. He gets the Casio keyboard out and does the marimba beat. And did you ever have one of those Casio keyboards
Oh
with like
yeah.
the different beats and stuff?
Yeah, I got mine. I asked for one from, it was at Costco.
Mhm.
And I only wanted it because it had like songs you could pre-play. And then I
Right.
could pretend that I knew how to play the piano.
Exactly.
And I never learned. But
Yeah.
for those 3 songs that were burnt in there, I was a rock star.
Yeah. I'm really good at this waltz. Yeah. Oh man.
You did you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did that. That was one of my favorite things. Was like, cool, we have a cool keyboard and oh, I can make drum noises and make it play these songs. That's all I
Yeah.
want. So,
Yeah. Half the time you're just trying to figure out which key makes which sound effect.
right. So, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
that's it. So Amy is trying to do the work and Jake is easily distracted. Sounds familiar. But he also is like as she's wrapping up in interviewing the clerk, Jake's like, I solved it. It's 3 guys and that one had double sleeve tattoos and she's like, how do you know that? And you're like, well, I got here before you. And I figured in this electronics store there would be a working camera. And I have a man on the inside. It's this nanny cam. It's a teddy bear with a camera in it. And yeah, so that is one of those things where it's like, yeah, it looks like he's just goofing around, but
Yeah.
we are indicated pretty quickly, like, oh, he actually like solved this crime.
Hmm.
He knows exactly who did it. He knows how to be a detective, and so
And the rest is playtime.
right, and so yeah, he's just having a good time.
Yeah.
Why can't you have a good time at a crime scene? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Somebody did.
Welcome to the murder. Somebody did. I guess
Now,
it depends upon your definition of a
I
good
guess,
time. There
I
you go.
guess. So not every crime scene is somebody's idea of a good time. Like that's I should write for Hallmark. Um, but then it trans so they arrest these guys, and then there's music playing,
Hmm.
but it's not the original. It's not the theme song that we know and love. And so that was one of those things that kind of jarred me as I was rewatching. I was like, wait, where this isn't the right song. And so
But it
it's
was
just
slow
this,
motion, like cop music.
yeah, yeah. It was like they're doing cop work, and
Is that the
it's
genre? Like when people say, "What kind of music do you like?" You're like, "Oh, I like music that plays in the background of a slow motion action scene."
I'm sure there's some algorithm that will find that for you.
I just like walk around my house all day in slow motion, feeling like I'm in a like there's explosions behind me.
Mhm. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that I'm sure your family loves that.
They do.
You just jump out of the way every once in a while. Get down. Jack Bauer it. Chloe, I don't have time for this. That was if Jack Bauer didn't say Chloe, I don't have time, at least in one episode, then I mean, are you even watching 24? So
I
did you watch
didn't know.
24?
Uh-uh.
Oh man, Jeremy, you really missed out on 3 good seasons of television. Uh,
It took them 3 seasons to do 24 hours.
no, every day, every season was another day, a different day.
So 30, so it should have been called
Well, it
36
wasn't consecutive days.
or 72 because I know how math works.
Yeah, but it wasn't consecutive days.
Oh, they're different 24-hour days.
Yeah. So,
Anyway,
and also Jack never went to the bathroom or ate in the whole series.
it's only
So,
one day. I mean, you can hold it.
yeah,
Maybe he had a big breakfast. I don't know.
maybe. Yeah. All right. So, they
Hey, we
intro
took a
music
long
happened.
break. We took a
We
long
did.
break from
We're
this.
catching up.
It's we're catching up. Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
One of the downsides of using Zoom is
Hmm.
it doesn't
Very
actually give me
distracting.
it is, but it doesn't give me a timer on how long we've actually been talking. So I have no idea.
Challenge
Uh,
accepted.
so they arrest these guys. They're in the briefing room, and this is where we learn that Jake and Amy have some kind of contest going on. As there's a on the whiteboard in the briefing room, there's like a tally mark and or 2 numbers, and so Jake solved this crime, and so Amy has to add 1 to his case solves. And so, but then Terry's there. Terry Jeffords, played by Terry Crews, who is excellent. I just I think this is the most perfect role for Terry Crews of all time. And so he just is great, and he's the sergeant, and he's leading the briefing, and so he has Jake brief everybody on the Morgenthau murder.
Mhm.
And so this guy was shot in his house, and guy stole a ham, and so that's like this is a weird crime. Uh, so but
But
then
but
we,
during his investigation using expert police work, he deduced that the cleaning lady had something gross on her chin.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
and then
just
it's
funny
like
how
a
they go,
poll of what is this?
right. Is it flan? Is it,
Some kind of
butterscotch
growth.
pudding or just old person gunk?
Yeah, old person gunk. Yeah, and this is where like we meet Rosa. That's her first line. I think maybe she's old person gunk.
Hmm.
And that is like her voice that is in the rest of the show. Maybe it's just old person gunk in the series, but in this episode, her voice changes and it doesn't sound as tough
Right.
when she's talking to Charles later. Which is like that's one of the things where like, oh, they're still figuring out who Rosa is. Um, so that's really the only character that I feel like they didn't really know
Yeah.
at this stage. So yeah, so but Jeffers also tells the department that the new commanding officer is coming, so be ready. he's going to want to know more about this murder when he gets here. So cut to the bullpen area. Charles asks Gina, and Gina is, we'll learn later, is the office administrator for the department. She's not a cop, but she's basically like the administration for the captain. And so Charles asked Gina about asking Rosa out, which right away, as a viewer, you're like, oh, that's never going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. Um,
Yeah, because
so
I mean, right? I mean, the character Rosa is dressed in all black.
mhm,
She's super tough already. We can see, and very, abrupt. And then Charles is dressed in tan, like
right.
all the tan. Like he makes
He's like the
Dwight look.
Dwight Schrute color
Yeah,
palette.
that's what I was gonna say. He makes Dwight look flamboyant. Like that's how tan he is.
Yeah. And
Beige.
I do love the way that they're Charles is trying to get information from Gina, and Gina says she has a type which is anyone but you. And Charles' response is, "That was my ex-wife's type too."
Yeah, because he wants to take her to a Rihanna concert.
Right? Like, oh, why? Uh, so yeah, so then Jake and Amy are talking, and Jake's upset because he's like, "I just wish McKinley, our previous CEO, never left because he was the best." And she's like, "He just let you do whatever you want." It's like, so, and it cuts to them doing it's Rosa and Peralta doing a uh, fire extinguisher race in
Mm-hmm.
their office chairs
Yeah.
to see how much power and how speed can make happen. Those are good words. Um, so yeah, but the yeah, and so Jake is like, just it doesn't matter who the next CEO is; they're all just boring. And then he does this robot impression, Meet Morp,
Yeah, pretty good.
and at that moment, like a vampire appearing out of nowhere, Ray Holt, the new CEO, shows up. He's like, "Tell me more about about my robot." And yeah, so he is he's like, he introduces, hey, Maggie's here. He introduces himself and tells everybody like, I'm Ray Holt, your new captain. And Amy like, speech. It's just, that was my speech. I love him. I love Ray Holt so much. And so he calls Jeffords in to come and talk in his office. And while they're going in, Gina's like, did anybody do a gay vibe? And everything. Oh. So Jeffords and Ray Holt, they know each other from the past because they were in a previous precinct when Terry was a much larger person. There was a lot more Terry back then. And he had a nickname, which was unfortunate but accurate. So, but Holt asks Jeffords to break down all of the detectives. And so he starts with Scully, Hitchcock, and Daniels. And he says they're basically useless, but they make good coffee. And fun fact, Daniels disappears, never
Yeah,
mentioned again.
Daniels doesn't make it. She's the
No.
first casualty.
Yeah. So Daniels is out. Then goes to Rosa, who's hard to read and scary. And it cuts. I love the way they use flashbacks in this show generally, but this is a good demonstration. So it cuts to a flashback of her asking Hitchcock, who has me for Secret Santa? And like very intense, like, and he's like, Scully, but he got you a scarf. I'll make him give it back.
Yeah, you
So
will.
and then goes to Boyle, and he's a grinder, but not physically gifted. And in a scene that is in the whole credits for the rest of the series, with just some great physical comedy, Charles Boyle drops his muffin, bends down to pick it up, and hits his head on the counter, and gets up and realizes that now he's also stepped on his muffin. I love it. It's so dumb and so funny. Um, all with this overview or like narration from Terry. Like, he's not physically gifted. It's like bam, and it happens so fast. And then Amy Santiago is she's always trying to prove that she's tough. She has seven brothers, and cuts to a scene with her and Scully in the break room, and she's putting some hot sauce on. He's like, "Hey, that's hot," and she takes the cap off and pours it all over her sandwich. Like, "Oh, is it?" And
Mhm.
eats it, and then she's like, "Oh, that's so hot."
It's like down her arm.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot
So,
of lot of sauce.
and then Jake, who turns out to be the best detective, who loves putting away bad guys and solving puzzles. The only puzzle he hasn't been able to solve is how to grow up. And Holt is like, "That was extremely well put." I love that. And it's like, yeah, I've had to talk a lot about it in my mandatory training or therapy sessions because Terry, forgot to mention this, Terry is not in the field, and he tells them because he's been afraid of getting hurt ever since his kids were born, and it cuts to a scene where he really just obliterates a mannequin because he thinks it's the perp. So um yeah, so so we get this overview of the detectives, which is really cool. I like the way it's handled. Like we're introduced to all the characters uh that are here, and Ray is like the outsider coming in.
Yeah,
And so we are also these outsiders coming in, and we don't know anything about these people. So it's like a really great device to say, like, here, get to know these people. I was
yeah.
like, brilliant, well done, well done. So the yeah, any thoughts or questions or impressions so far? Not questions. I mean, I'm not an expert. Uh,
No, I'm terrible with impressions.
okay.
Yeah, we can keep going. I just,
Uh,
it sounds like me every time.
your impression. All right. Do an
Yeah,
impression uh of Cat Williams.
I don't even know.
He's a comedian.
No, I know who he is. I don't know like a famous thing he says that people would.
I don't either.
Okay, I'm Cat Williams. See, it just sounds like me.
Nailed it.
All right,
Nailed it.
cool.
I'm so proud of you.
To the crime scene.
Yeah, so they go to the crime scene, and one of the things when Peralta confronted Jake for his robot impression, he said, "I need you to be wearing a tie." And Jake's like,
Mhm.
"No, I don't need to wear a tie. Our previous CEO didn't care." And Holt is like, "Well, your current one does." Which, as somebody who is like in charge of people, there
Mhm.
are times where it's like, I don't care what your previous boss said. Like, and that sometimes that feels good. Like, I don't care. Like, you don't work for them anymore. So
Yeah, he
don't play
sat
that too
down.
often.
Yeah, he did a good job of like, like being he was very captainy. Like he
Yeah,
wasn't a jerk about it, but he was like, no, this is the rule, and you kind of got to get on board. Or else,
right,
but without saying or else or threatening. He was just,
right.
yeah,
No, this is what we're doing here.
yeah,
So
this is it.
you should do it. Uh, all right. So yeah, so they go to the murder and at Morgenthau, and like everybody's there, which I don't understand why we need that many detectives to come to this crime scene. And so they are trying to break down the scene, and whenever somebody says something correctly, Jake gives them one of Charles's ties.
Yeah.
So because it's impossible to solve crimes without a tie. And they learn that the perp stole a jamon iberico, which is worth six
Mm.
thousand dollars. And Charles knows, right, like you said, Charles knows right away. Like, oh no, those are really good. At my uncle's wake, I gorged myself on it. Like, that's a weird thing to do at your uncle's wake. But then Holt shows up, and like again, like ninja style,
Hmm.
and he assigns Amy and Peralta to go knocking on doors, and Jake's like, "That's a waste of time." And Holt's like, "I don't care, you're doing it." And then he's like, "The next time wear a tie," and he leaves. And Jake goes, "Oh, that went well." And down the hall, no, it didn't. So, and this is when Charles asks Rosa to an old movie festival, and she says yes. And she's like, "You better pick a good movie." It's like, "Oh, I was thinking Citizen Kane." It's like, "No, Citizen Kane's terrible."
Pick a better movie than Citizen Kane.
Yeah, and I do love how as she's driving away and he's just there on the sidewalk, like, "I'll choose a better movie than Citizen Kane," which is
regarded
arguably
as, yeah.
one of the best movies of all time. Have you
Hmm.
seen Citizen Kane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rosebud.
Yeah. Is it one of the best movies of all time?
Here's the hard thing with these arguments is that at the time, and I'm not saying at the time like for just like that, it changed so much of cinema. And I think that's, how it was shot, withholding information. It wasn't a big stage play. It was, deep. It had lots of subtext. There were shots in there that had never been used before. So the story itself is well written, especially for, so yeah, I mean, because of what it's kind of like saying, oh, is Nirvana the greatest band of, like, no, but what they did for music, what Citizen Kane did for cinema is just, it's so hard to argue against it. So, I mean, yeah, since then, so many great movies have come out because of it, but I have strong feelings like Blade Runner.
Blade Runner is definitely a movie. The and I have three versions of Blade Runner. Okay,
That's your
I have
problem.
I
Just
have
stick to one.
tried to watch however people want me to see this movie. I've tried them all. But yeah, Citizen Kane. I like Citizen Kane, and it is I do think it's a classic. I think it's one of the greatest. Um, but I agree with you. If it wasn't for Citizen Kane, we wouldn't have The Sixth Sense. Like that kind of like twist reveal,
Hmm.
like that trick, like Citizen Kane really was like just really uh yeah, it was really good. So
It was just really ahead of its time using that old tech. Like if you that's what I'm saying. Like if you tried to redo it now, it wouldn't hold because everybody knows the ending. So yeah, I think it was just one of those real big twists. Anyway, yeah, we can keep going.
I would love for somebody to announce they're going to remake Citizen Kane and just see all of a different
Just
kind of film nerd freak out,
right, the internet
right?
would explode.
Because like they they recast for Star Trek, right? With the J.J. Abrams reboot,
Hmm.
and like people freaked out, right? And these are nerds, and I count myself among them, right? I mean that's a Yoda, so I mean I'm not
There.
above nerdery, and it's so like all these film nerds, these cineasts will come out of the woodwork saying like, "How dare you touch such a wonderful, perfect film with your dirty 21st century fingers?"
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway,
What was it? It was in black and white. We could at least put some color in it.
uh-huh. That'll make it, yeah, sure. That'll fix everything. Um, so anyway, so they Holt is back at the office and he asks Gina to give some background on this whole debate between Amy or the contest between Amy and Peralta. And if it's about who gets the most arrests. And if Amy wins, she gets Jake's car, which is a super sweet Mustang. And if Jake wins, then they will go on a date. And Gina says that Jake guarantees it will end sex. And then she gets way too into describing the date.
Yeah.
And Holt is like, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. So they then start knocking on doors. Cut back to the apartment building. They're knocking on doors. The first one, the guy's like, it's a bunch of potheads, and the Jacob Peralta are like, "Hey, do you guys know anything about this person and this thing that happened?" Like, we're glad you're here because somebody dropped off a bunch of weed and smoked it, and then they left. It's like, oh, it's the same guy who left that bong on the floor. Yes.
Yeah.
And then the next one is Fred I'm reading his
Arm and Hammer.
character's name, Frank Armisen, and he plays Melipnos, and
Bleepnos.
with a silent clay.
Play.
Um, and they're trying. He's a not a natural English speaker, and so they're asking, and they hand him a picture of the victim, and he takes it and closes the door. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
ours. Oh,
Yeah.
and then the next one, Amy is looking at the newspaper on the ground and is like, all right, this is probably a hot, eligible young bachelor. And Jake's like, all right, I'll take that bet. They open the door. It's a 92-year-old man. And Jake's like, this is I'm Detective Right all the time. And this is my partner, Terrible Detective. Uh, so, so they go back to the precinct and they're kind of briefing Holt on what they learned so far. And Holt points out that he's still not wearing a tie. And yeah, it's like, just keep me posted on what comes about. And so Jake then asks Charles about the ham, anywhere that you could find a ham like that. And he's like, yeah, there's a corner market there. And they're like, let's go. And so they go. And
But wait, hold on. I don't. This is important. Is that? But Jake was wearing a tie.
oh yeah. He was wearing a tie under his shirt. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's trying.
It's a secret tie.
Yeah. So yeah, so and this is where Holt points out, like, you really went overboard on the manscaping. And
And Jake's reaction is like, wait, really?
so they go and they talk to this guy behind the counter at the market. His name's Ratko, and he's like, I don't know anything. And then they play it out, and they're like, we think you killed him. And he's like, tries to escape and like runs away. And they Charles and Peralta then are trying to like pin him in, and there's an old lady
Yeah.
who's shopping, and she won't get out of the way.
And she's not just shopping, like, you know, like just wandering, like she's literally trying to find items to buy.
Right.
Like
And
she's actively, like she's in an active shooting situation, and she's like, nah, I need these olives.
yeah, which, you know, I've been to New York 2 times, and that I'm no expert in New York, but that seems exactly like how I feel all the people in New York were. It's like, there's a lot going on here. I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
This has nothing to do with me.
Everybody was super nice when I was in New York, but they were also just like, just let me do what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have time for your nonsense. So, yeah, but they are like, Jake is like, how are you still here? So, and then Charles gets, he gets gelatoed by Ratko, and Ratko escapes.
That was probably the thing that was my biggest problem with this episode. That was so much gelato they wasted.
I know.
That was a lot. I mean, he was full on in there, like his whole body. He touched it all.
Yeah, which is a bummer. So, but you know, that's the the line of duty, I guess.
Maybe not all of it, because they did save Holt a scoop of hazelnut.
Yeah, which doesn't sound very good. I don't really like hazelnut. Do you like hazelnut? Anything? Like the Ferrero Rochers? Like, I hate those.
They're fine.
There's
isn't
too
Nutella
much.
Isn't Nutella hazelnut?
Yeah.
I can go. Yeah, I can get down with that.
All right.
Nutella's fine, but it's like because they put a lot of sugar in there and chocolate and other flavors that don't taste like hazelnut.
Right.
Like,
so you're not really a hazelnut fan.
No, more like sugar and chocolate fan, I think.
Right.
Like, kind of like when people put hazelnut creamer in coffee. I never got that. That was like the first flavored creamer I ever heard of.
Ever.
Ever.
Like before vanilla.
Yeah, I think so.
You were exposed to hazelnut coffee mate before French vanilla coffee mate. Wow.
Yeah. It was it was an interesting upbringing.
See, I grew up closer to the big city up here in the Seattle area. We had French vanilla because we were cosmopolitan.
French vanilla. Freedom vanilla, I think, is what you mean.
Wow. Yeah.
Sorry. That's a call. See, that's a callback.
It's a callback to 23 years ago. So they go back and they're briefing Holt, and he's like, yes, we did not capture Ratko, but we brought him back to Zayla. And Charles is covered in ice cream. It's great.
Why this mini shovel for gelato? I've never understood
the tiny little spoon.
No, it's not a spoon. It's a shovel. It's a flathead shovel.
Right. Yes, it is a flathead shovel. Why that? No idea. Italians are weird. I think we can all agree Italians are weird.
They make some good food. I mean, or I don't know. I don't know Italians. Rick, weigh in on this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, leave a comment, listener, watcher, viewer, person. Why are Italians so weird? Or why the shovel for gelato? Maybe because it's just like, hey, you want to shovel this into your gullet.
Right. Make it bigger then.
Yes. Maybe, well, probably because you want to shovel it in, but you should probably slow down. You're going to get a headache.
Well, I think it makes the one small scoop seem so much bigger when it takes so long to eat.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm going to be working on this forever.
Here's a Lego spoon.
Maybe that's it. Maybe there's a Lego factory next to the gelato plant, and they're like, hey, what if we had some synergy? Synergy,
Yeah.
Lemon. Never badmouth
The
Synergy.
badmouth synergy.
So Jake is disciplined and he ends up in records room. And so this is while he's there, he's talking to Terry and Amy. Uh, and Amy's like, that guy's going to be my rabbi. He's just really respecting. She's really respecting him, looking up to him. And Terry's like, you need to understand that Holt is a great detective. And then we get this flashback of young Holt capturing the Disco Strangler, which is a big deal, apparently.
Because he's young because he gave him hair.
Right. And he's like, freeze, disco punk. He's just so great. I love Captain Holt. He's just the
background music is
yeah, it's like all 70s cop music. It's so good. And they're like the costumes are so awesome. Just like, yes, period piece. So
looks like Disco Stew from The Simpsons.
Yes, and he's an old man. Like if you look at the Disco Strangler, he is old in that scene, and which is important because later he'll come back and he's a very old man. So it's just so I just love the continuity of it all. And so then we also cut to Charles. He bought tickets to all the movies because he's like, and Rose's like, why'd you do that? It's like, well, because you're opinionated. And he's like, you think I'm opinionated? And so she calls it off, calls him a bad judge of character. And so he cut to Gina giving him a thumbs up, turning into a thumbs down bomb, which is some great work there from Lisa Peretti, one of our comedy greats. So what Jake is in records and he's wearing his tie. Holt comes to see what's up. And he's like, hey, you're wearing a tie? He's like, yes, I am, because I have to solve crimes. And he then says, but I did some research on this Ratco thing, and I found this file, which was in a spider web. And he points out like it's a made up name. There's a Serbian thug called the Rat. And he hangs out by the storage shed, which has red soil around it, thus this red footprint that we found on the crime scene. And Holt's like, wow, that's really good. Good job. He's like, thank you. And so he is like, also, I appreciate that you're wearing a tie. And he's like, he stands up. He's like, yes, of course, I'm wearing a tie. And he's wearing only a Speedo for his pant area. And so Holt is like, you know what? We should celebrate this great detective work here. And he calls everybody in to point out that Jake is wearing a Speedo and to embarrass him, which is nice. Like, I appreciate that there's a little bit of levity and playfulness here. It's like, you think you're pranking me, but I am going to prank you. The prankee shall be the pranked.
Yeah, he doesn't get mad. Like, that's what I liked about Holt, is like, he's smart. Like, he doesn't just resort to anger and yelling at a subordinate for like, why won't you, like, he already asked him, like, why won't you just wear a tie? And then he's like, all right, cool. Like, I'll just lean into this.
If you want to be a turd,
yep.
I'll let you turd it up.
Turd it up.
Turd it up. So
turd up for what?
That is, I'm going to be thinking about that song all day. So they do a stakeout at the storage unit, and Jake is talking, and Amy Peralta is like, is he always talk this much? And she just says, I just kind of zone him out like a white noise machine. And she's like, first of all, that's racist. And then he asks,
noises matter.
What? Whoa. Okay.
Right? No?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. All right. That's great. I love it. Don't worry about it. And then Jake asks about the Disco Strangler and why it took so long for Holt to get a command. And this is where we get to learn about this character. All of this is happening in this first pilot episode, and it never stops. Like, it never like feels like a low moment. Right. Things just keep moving forward. And so talks about how he's like, the thing that kept him back was because he's gay. And Jake's like, what? No. And Holt's like, I'm not trying to hide it. And they do a bunch of flashbacks, and he's like, manscaping. And then it's a picture of like an article, like first gay captain, that's on Holt's wall. And Gina, like, anybody picking up a gay vibe? So so it turns out Gina is the best detective of them all.
Right.
And
that's good. Yeah.
And so then cut to Rosa and Charles in the other car, and Rosa gives him money back for buying all the tickets. Like, why? Like, and he's like, well, this is awkward now. And she's like, it's not awkward. I like your company. And this is where her voice is different in this scene. I was like, this doesn't sound like Rosa. Like, I don't know what's happening here. Um,
Because she calls him sweet.
yeah, it was sweet. I like your company. And it's like, but the actual like sound of her voice
Oh, gotcha.
is different than the rest of the show, where she's like much more like a lower register. Um, so anyway, gonna bother me forever. But as Holt is giving his backstory in the other car, Jake is like, "Wow, that sucks that all happened." But on the other hand, there's Ratko. I'm a great detective, and they go and they like bust into the storage unit to arrest him. And this is where the theme song that we know and love comes in for the
Da,
first
da, da,
time.
da, da.
Yeah, and so I was like, "Oh, this is perfect! Like, what a great reveal of the song that is actually going to be the theme song. Like, do it at the end. I love
Hmm.
it. It was so good. And
When
so,
the team comes together.
yeah, yes, exactly. It's so
Yeah.
good. I thought it was just so well done. And one of the things I looked on IMDb for any goofs, and one of the things they pointed out was as Jake is trying to put on his vest, he's actually putting his head through his armhole. so,
About right. Seems about right.
and it seems like that would be a blooper, but I bet that was actually on purpose. Like for people who would know, that'd be very funny. Like because Jake is not a very good cop in different ways. So they go in and Jake's like, oh, 2000 identical blue doors. And this is the callback. Holt goes, looks like we're all on door duty. And he smiles. And Jake's like, oh, earlier, because of the thing. And then they start spreading out through the building, and Holt and Amy are together, and Jake's on his own, which is a bad move police wise. And then Amy or Rosa and Charles are so there's three units moving through, and Amy and Holt are coming up against the janitor, and Amy like points at her like badge and the her label on the vest, like move, move. And the janitor turns around and like points at
you go,
maintenance.
like
So
you go
that
around.
yeah, you go around. Like I'm mopping here. And Amy walks by like unbelievable. So, but Jake finds the door that Rat goes in, and he starts to kneel down, and then the door opens, and Rat goes there with a gun, and he's like, "I'm getting it away. I'm getting it away." He's actually, "You're not getting it away." And Peralta points out like Charles and Rose are over here, holding Amy over there. You're caught, and my team's surrounding you. And then Jake's like, "That's what it is." The team. The tie is a team uniform, and you weren't able to be on the team, and now you're on the team. You want us all wear the uniform. And I was
Probably
like,
not the best time, Jake.
yeah. I was like, and then Ratko's like, "Do you want me to be on the team?" He's like, "No, shut up,
No.
Ratko."
Ratko on team.
Shut up, Ratko. Yeah. So then Ratko tries to bolt, and Amy hits him with a thing in the knees, and he falls down, and they arrest him. And yeah, great episode. That's the end. Well, actually, Jake is like shifting, and Holt goes, "What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "I never took off that Speedo. It is inside me."
I mean, I like that too because at first he's like, we catch the bad guys and we look good doing it, and he looks
Mhm.
at him, he's like, "What's wrong with you?" Like he has to, and like my first thought was like, why are you such a child? Like you have to have a tagline, and then you realize it's not. He's not asking him what's wrong with him mentally. It's
Right.
that physically he's
He's
got a
moving
speedo up his
weird.
butt. And then that's when Jake walks off, and Holt just kind of has the side grin, like seriously, like
This is my team.
this is my team. This is what it's gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this may be the most perfect pilot of any sitcom I have ever seen.
Oh, sitcom. Yeah. Okay.
Because like
Wow.
all the characters are pretty much developed, like are pretty well formed.
Hmm.
Like the
Hmm.
only one that is unclear at this point really is Rosa.
Right.
But
And we haven't gotten
and
into Hitchcock and Scully, but they're kind of tertiary
yeah,
characters.
they're C plot at best most
Hmm.
episodes, except for a couple really awesome ones.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So wing sluts. Uh oh man, I love that show. I love that episode so much. But yeah, I mean, these are like well-developed characters. It is the set and the tone of the show, like it's all like really well established.
Hmm.
It doesn't like the change between season one Parks and Rec or season one of The Office
Yeah.
to later seasons is so huge that like when people are like, oh, I don't really like that season of those shows, like, well, you got to watch season two and three. Like you'll get into it. Like I feel like if you don't like the pilot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
Yeah.
then you just don't like the show.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
this is the show.
It hits the ground running. Like all of like the humor, like the style of humor, it's all there. It's, I mean,
Right.
from Boyle getting just covered, like the physical comedy getting covered in I mean, all, callbacks. I mean, just everything is it's set up. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. If you don't like this style of comedy, then the show's not for you.
It's just yeah. And I mean, we're sad for
And
you.
yeah, you're dead
We'll pray for
inside,
you.
but it's okay.
So
Um,
yeah, but that's the episode one. We did it.
and it got,
Anything
I
else?
think, no, I think it got like, it only got a 7.4 on IMDb. And for and pilots, I know can be rough, but like you're saying, like this really felt, I always like seeing too, the difference between the pilot and the rest of the show, like as far as like the background, like maybe like the bullpen or things like that. And there's not a lot of changes. There's the
Yeah,
only
it's
thing,
very consistent.
the biggest change is losing the one detective with Hitchcock and Scully. Is that
Daniels.
Daniels, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, but that happened with The Office too. Like there are people in the
Oh
first
yeah.
season of The Office who
They
are
just
never
disappear.
named and they just
Right.
go away. It's like I guess they did have downsizing. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a part of it. Yeah, they got rid of a lot of them and
Yeah, but this show, it just hits the ground running. I think it's super funny, and I'm excited to go through the next 152 episodes of this together.
152 episodes.
It's a lot.
All right. Well, we started it, but now, I mean, we got to finish it. So,
I mean, if we don't, there will be literally fives of people who will probably be upset about it. So,
did you find the music for it for our intro outro?
I haven't found it yet.
Okay.
I found one, but it's not very good. So,
Well, now
I'll
we'll
look
get
for
to
it.
see what it is right after this.
Yeah. Yeah. So, here's some music. Actually, like, subscribe, comment, all those different
Yeah.
things. You can also email us parksandconversation@gmail.com because I'm not starting a new email address. So yeah, but Jeremy, it's good to talk with you. Good to see you, listener. If you are frightened by our faces, this will still be an audio only product in your podcast. So you don't have to look at us. And I understand when I'm not offended. But yeah, I mean that's all we got to say today, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can always change the speed to 1.5 time, and then maybe we'll be funnier sooner.
Doubtful. Funnier sooner.
Yeah.
Or it'll be over sooner. It's all about perspective. So
Yeah.
speaking about over sooner, why don't we wrap it up here?
All right, man. I'll
see you later, man.
See you. Bye.